The sky above New Jeju burned with festival lights. Children ran through the streets with glow sticks while their parents watched from sidewalk cafes. The colony world celebrated 50 years since the first human settlers arrived. Music filled the air. Dancers moved in the central plaza. Nobody looked up at the stars. Nobody saw the ships arriving. Captain Taemin Park stood on his sister's balcony and smiled. His niece ran past him, chasing her brother through the apartment. His sister brought him tea and they talked about old times on Earth. He was visiting for the anniversary celebration before his next patrol assignment. The night felt perfect, peaceful, safe. The first explosion came at midnight. The orbital defense station vanished in a ball of fire. Alarm screamed across the colony. Taemin dropped his tea and ran to the window. His sister grabbed her children and pulled them close. More explosions lit up the sky. The festival lights seemed pathetic now against the real fire falling from space. Taemin activated his military comm unit. Static filled the channel. Then a voice broke through, panicked and young. Unknown ships in orbit. Massive energy signatures. They're firing on civilian centers. We need backup. The transmission cut off with a wet crunch. His sister screamed. Taemin turned and saw the plasma bolt strike 3 blocks away. The entire neighborhood disappeared. Just gone, vaporized. The shockwave threw him against the wall. His ears rang. His vision blurred. When he could see again, his sister was pulling her children toward the door. They had to run. They had to hide. But where could anyone hide from weapons that erased city blocks? Taemin followed them down the stairs. Other families crowded the stairwell, pushing and shoving. Someone fell. Others trampled over them. He grabbed his niece and nephew, lifting them over the crowd. His sister held onto his jacket. They made it outside. The colony's main street looked like a war zone. Buildings burned. Bodies lay in the streets. Overhead, massive alien ships hung in the sky like dark moons. They were triangular, covered in glowing lines that pulsed with sickly green light. One of them rotated slowly and fired again. The courthouse exploded. The library, the school, everything humans built over 50 years destroyed in minutes. A broadcast played on every screen and speaker across the colony. The alien voice sounded cold and flat. Your species encroaches on sovereign territory. You will be removed. This is the only warning. Submit or die. Taemin pulled his sister toward the spaceport. Some ships might still be there. Some way to escape. They ran past destroyed shops and burning vehicles. His nephew cried. His niece held tight to his hand. They turned the corner and Taemin saw the spaceport ahead. Half the landing pads were craters, but some ships still sat intact. Then he saw the aliens themselves. They were tall, maybe 8 feet, with 4 arms and skin like gray leather. They wore armor that seemed to absorb light. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. A squad of them walked through the street, firing at anyone who moved. They didn't hesitate, didn't speak, just killed. Taemin pushed his family behind a destroyed car. He had no weapon. No way to fight. He could only watch as the aliens methodically cleared the street. One of them stopped and tilted its head, scanning the area. Its eyes glowed yellow in the dark. It turned toward their hiding spot. A human defense fighter screamed overhead. The pilot fired missiles at the alien squad. The explosion threw the aliens backwards. The fighter circled for another pass, but an alien ship fired from orbit. The fighter exploded in midair. Burning debris rained down. Taemin used the distraction to run. His sister kept pace. The children ran as fast as their small legs could manage. The spaceport was close now. Just 2 more blocks. They could make it. They had to make it. A plasma bolt hit the building beside them. The whole structure collapsed. Taemin threw himself over the children as rubble fell. Something hit his back hard. Pain exploded through his body. He heard his sister scream his name. Then darkness took him. He woke up on a ship. The escape vessel shook with turbulence. Someone had bandaged his wounds. He sat up slowly, groaning. The ship's interior was packed with survivors. Maybe 50 people in a space meant for 20. Everyone looked shocked, traumatized, silent. A young officer saw him wake up. Lieutenant Dong-ha Kim wore a torn uniform covered in blood. His eyes were hollow. "You're lucky," the lieutenant said. "We got you and your family on board just before the spaceport was destroyed." Taemin looked around frantically. Where are they?" The lieutenant's face went blank. He pointed to the corner. Taemin crawled over, pushing through the crowded bodies. He found his niece and nephew huddled together, wrapped in emergency blankets. They were alive, bruised and crying, but alive. He pulled them close. "Your sister?" he asked, though he already knew. The lieutenant shook his head. "The building collapsed. We couldn't reach her in time." "I'm sorry." Taemin held the children tighter. They asked for their mother. He had no answer. He just held them and stared at nothing. The ship broke orbit and jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, New Jeju died. The aliens bombarded the surface for 6 more hours. They erased cities, forests, oceans, everything. When they finished, the colony world was just a burned rock. 2.3 million people lived there. Now nobody did. The same thing happened at Busan Station and Daegu Prime. 2 more colonies. 2 more massacres. A few escape ships from each place made it back to Earth. They brought survivors. They brought footage. They brought the truth. Admiral Ji-Woo Kang stood in the United Earth Council chamber and watched the footage play. She was 52 years old and had served in the fleet for 30 years. She had fought pirates and smugglers. She had negotiated with alien traders. She thought she understood the galaxy. She was wrong. The council members sat in stunned silence as the footage ended. The alien ships, the bombardment, the bodies, the complete destruction. 3 colonies gone, millions dead. And the alien broadcast played again. "Your species encroaches on sovereign territory. You will be removed." A counselor from Asia stood up, his voice shaking. "We must evacuate Earth. They could come here next." "We have to run," another counselor argued. "We should surrender. Give them whatever they want. We can't fight them." Admiral Ji-Woo Kang walked to the holographic star map at the center of the chamber. She touched the controls and brought up the tactical display. Earth, the dead colonies, the estimated location of the alien empire. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she turned to face the council. "They think we'll surrender or hide," she said quietly. "They don't understand what they've awakened." The chamber fell silent. Every eye fixed on her. "We will not run. We will not beg. We will prepare. And when we're ready, we will show them what humans do to those who murder our children." She looked at each council member in turn. "We're going to war, and we're going to win." 3 months passed since the massacre. Earth went silent. Every transmission stopped. Every signal ceased. The planet disappeared from the galaxy's communication networks like it never existed. The aliens called themselves the Talvek Empire. They watched Earth's silence and assumed the humans accepted their fate. They were wrong. Deep inside a military bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Ji-Woo Kang assembled humanity's best minds. Scientists, engineers, strategists, fighter pilots. Every person in that room had lost someone in the colony attacks. Every person wanted revenge, but revenge required planning, required patience, required weapons the Talvek had never seen. Dr. Hae-Won Lee stood before a holographic display showing a star. She was 38, brilliant and haunted by nightmares of burning colonies. Her hands shook slightly as she manipulated the display. "A star is a balance," she explained to the assembled officers. Gravity pulling inward, fusion pushing outward. Disturb that balance and the star becomes unstable. Admiral Kang leaned forward. "How unstable?" Dr. Lee's face remained neutral. "Nova level. Complete system destruction. Everything within 5 billion kilometers vaporized." The room went quiet. Someone coughed. Everyone understood what she was proposing. A weapon that killed stars. A weapon that killed worlds. A weapon that could end billions of lives with a single trigger pull. Captain Taemin Park stood in the back of the room. He had been promoted after the colonies fell. His niece and nephew were safe on Earth now, living with their grandparents. But he saw his sister's face every time he closed his eyes. He raised his hand. "How long to build this weapon?" Dr. Lee met his gaze. "The prototype exists. We tested it on a dead star in deep space. It works. We can build 50 units in 4 months." Admiral Kang nodded slowly. "Build them. But we need more than a doomsday weapon. We need to reach the Talvek without them seeing us coming. We need to hurt them before they know we're there." Commander Bora Shin stepped forward. She was 41 and had worked in intelligence for 15 years. She had spent the last 3 months studying every piece of Talvek communication they captured. The Talvek rely on active sensors, radar, LiDAR, energy pulse detection. They're looking for signals, emissions. If we give them nothing to see, we're invisible. A naval engineer named Jae Sung raised his hand. We can coat our ships with a metamaterial that absorbs radar and sensor pulses. We've been developing it for stealth satellites. With modifications, we can cover entire warships. They'll be ghosts. Admiral Kang smiled for the first time in 3 months. How many ships can you modify? Jae Sung checked his tablet. We have 6 carriers in orbital dock. We can convert them in 5 months. They won't be fast, but they'll be invisible. The Admiral turned to the room. This is the plan. We build stealth carriers. We load them with fighters that run silent. We equip them with Dr. Lee's stellar weapons, and we strike the Talvek where they think they're safe. Lieutenant Dong-ha Kim sat in the corner of the room. He was 29 and had piloted the escape ship from New Jeju. He hadn't slept properly since that night. The alien faces haunted him. Their cold efficiency. The way they killed without mercy or hesitation. He stood up. I volunteer for the strike force. Whatever you need, I'm there. Dozens of other voices echoed his. Everyone wanted to fight. Everyone wanted justice for the dead. Admiral Kang raised her hand for silence. You'll all get your chance. But this war won't be won with anger. It'll be won with discipline, training, patience. We're going to spend 6 months preparing. And when we strike, the Talvek won't know what hit them. The months that followed transformed Earth. Every factory retooled for war production. Every shipyard worked around the clock. The 6 carriers slowly disappeared under layers of black coating. They looked like ships carved from shadow. No running lights. No bright colors. Just dark metal that swallowed sensor beams. Captain Taemin Park trained his crew on the lead carrier. They named it the ESS Retribution. The ship's crew learned to operate in complete silence. No active sensors. No communications unless absolutely necessary. They practiced navigation by passive detection only, reading the gravity wells of stars and planets. It was harder, slower, but it made them invisible. Lieutenant Dong-ha Kim trained with his fighter squadron. The new fighters were smaller than traditional craft. They ran on cold fusion reactors that barely radiated heat. Their weapons were kinetic rails and missiles with no energy signature until they fired. The pilots practiced flying in complete darkness, guided only by their instruments and instinct. Dr. Haewon Lee oversaw production of the stellar torpedoes. Each one was 20 meters long and packed with exotic matter that destabilized fusion reactions. They could burrow deep into a star's corona and start a chain reaction that would take days to complete. Enough time to evacuate, enough time to make demands, or enough time to let everyone die. The choice would be humanity's. Commander Bo-Ra Shin continued studying the Talvek. She learned their language, their culture, their psychology. The Talvek believed in strength above all else. They conquered species weaker than themselves and enslaved them. They had destroyed 3 other civilizations before humans. They saw mercy as weakness, negotiation as surrender. They would never expect what was coming. 6 months after the massacre, the ESS Retribution and 5 sister ships launched from Earth. No ceremony. No fanfare. They simply disappeared into the black. The ships ran on silent thrusters, leaving no visible exhaust. They jumped to faster-than-light speed using a new drive system that created no detectable ripple in space-time. They were ghosts now. Specters. Phantoms in the dark. The fleet traveled for 3 weeks, moving through unexplored space between the human colonies and Talvek territory. They passed dead stars and empty systems. They saw no other ships. No signs of life. Just the vast, cold emptiness between civilizations. The crew stayed busy, drilled constantly, prepared for battle. Captain Park walked through the Retribution's corridors and saw the determination on every face. These weren't professional soldiers. Most were colonists who escaped. Engineers who lost their families. Pilots who watched their homes burn. They had become warriors because they had no choice. Because someone had to answer the Talvek's violence with humanity's fury. In the ship's ready room, Park gathered his senior officers. Commander Bo-Ra Shin spread intelligence reports across the holographic table. The Talvek have 200 ships patrolling their border. They built a monument on New Jeju's ruins, a tower celebrating their victory over humanity. Lieutenant Kim's jaw clenched. Let me destroy it. Park looked at Admiral Kang's orders on his tablet. The mission was clear. Strike fast. Strike silent. Make the Talvek afraid. He looked up at his officers. We start with border raids. Test their defenses. Learn their patterns. And then we go after that monument. The officers nodded. They understood. This wasn't just war. It was a message. The Talvek thought they had ended the human threat. They thought humans would hide or die quietly. They were about to learn the truth. On the bridge, Park stood before the main viewport. Ahead, somewhere in the darkness, the Talvek Empire waited. They felt safe, secure, victorious. They had no idea that 6 ships full of angry, determined, and very creative humans were coming for them. He activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. We're approaching Talvek space. From this moment forward, we operate under absolute silence. No transmissions, no active sensors. We are ghosts, and ghosts have come for revenge." The ESS Retribution slipped across the border into enemy territory. Sensors couldn't see it. Patrols passed within kilometers and detected nothing. The ship moved like a shadow through the Talvek Empire's outer defense line. Behind it, 5 more carriers followed. Invisible, silent, deadly. The Talvek had no idea that the war had just begun. The ESS Retribution drifted in the shadow of a dead moon. Captain Taman Park stood on the bridge watching the Talvek supply convoy pass below. 5 cargo ships escorted by 2 warships. They moved in a straight line, confident and unworried. Their sensors swept space around them but found nothing. The human ships were too quiet, too cold, invisible. Commander Bora Shin studied the convoy's formation on her tactical display. They follow the same route every week. Same timing, same escort pattern. They think this space is safe. Park nodded slowly. "Lieutenant Kim, prepare your squadron. Silent launch. No active targeting until you're within firing range. Hit the escorts first, then the cargo ships. Leave no survivors to report back." Lieutenant Dong-ha Kim's fighter squadron launched from the Retribution's bay without a sound. 12 small craft drifted on momentum alone, their engines dark. They spread out in a wide pattern around the convoy. The Talvek ships continued forward unaware. Their crews probably talked and joked. They probably thought about going home. They had no idea death surrounded them. Kim checked his targeting computer. The lead escort ship was 3 kilometers ahead. Close enough. He activated his weapons. The other 11 fighters did the same. 12 targeting locks painted the convoy at once. The Talvek sensors screamed warnings, but too late. Much too late, the human fighters fired. Kinetic rounds moving at 10 kilometers per second slammed into the escort ships. The armor crumpled. Atmosphere vented into space. The warships tried to turn, tried to fight back, but they couldn't see their attackers. They fired wildly into empty space while the fighters circled and fired again. Both escorts exploded within 30 seconds. The cargo ships scattered. One tried to run. One tried to send a distress signal. Kim's squadron hunted them down methodically. The distress signal ship died first, its communications array blown apart before it could finish transmitting. The others followed quickly. 5 cargo ships destroyed, 7 Talvek vessels gone without a trace. No debris left behind. The fighters used cutting beams to vaporize the wreckage until nothing remained but dust. Park watched from the Retribution's bridge. Clean, efficient, perfect. "Bring them home. Commander." The fighters returned to the carrier and the ship slipped deeper into Talvek space. Over the next 3 weeks, 15 more Talvek ships disappeared. Patrols vanished. Cargo runs never arrived at their destinations. Mining operations went silent. The Talvek military command started asking questions, started investigating, but they found nothing. No evidence. No witnesses. Just empty space where their ships used to be. War Master Cross stood in his command center and stared at the tactical map. He was a veteran warrior who had conquered 6 species. He understood warfare, tactics, strategy, but this made no sense. Ships didn't just vanish. There had to be enemies, attackers, someone to fight. But his sensors showed nothing. His scouts reported nothing. The space was empty except for his own forces. One of his officers approached nervously. "War Master, the crews are becoming afraid. They speak of ghosts and demons. They say the humans have returned from death to haunt us." Cross slammed his fist on the console. "Superstitious fools. There are no ghosts. Only enemies we haven't found yet. Double the patrols. Increase sensor sweeps. Whatever is out there, we will find it and destroy it." But the disappearances continued. The Talvek crews grew more paranoid with each passing day. They jumped at shadows, fired at asteroid fields. Some ships refused to leave port. The invisible enemy was destroying Talvek morale without firing a shot. Commander Bora Shin sat in her intelligence office on the Retribution and listened to captured Talvek communications. Their fear was obvious, their confusion complete. She prepared a special broadcast and brought it to Captain Park. "Sir, I think it's time we introduced ourselves properly." Park read her proposal and smiled grimly. "Do it." That night, every Talvek ship and station received the same transmission. It showed footage from the colony massacres. Families dying, cities burning, children crying, 2.3 million dead. The images were brutal, unfiltered, real. Then a message appeared in the Talvek language. Simple words that promised terrible things. "We remember. We are coming." The transmission repeated for 6 hours before stopping. The Talvek command center exploded with activity. Overlord Vren himself demanded answers. His officers had none. The transmission came from nowhere. Everywhere. They couldn't trace it, couldn't block it, couldn't stop it. Diplomat Thelon, the Talvek's senior advisor, approached Overlord Vren carefully. "My lord, perhaps we underestimated the humans. Perhaps we should negotiate before—" Vren struck him across the face. "Negotiate with prey? Never. We showed them their place. If they want war, we'll erase their homeworld just like we erased their colonies." But his confidence was shaken. Everyone could see it. The humans weren't hiding, weren't running. They were fighting back in ways the Talvek had never encountered. And somewhere in the dark, they were watching, waiting, planning. Lieutenant Kim requested a special mission. He wanted to return to New Jeju, to destroy the monument the Talvek built on human graves. Captain Park approved immediately. 2 weeks later, Kim's squadron slipped into the New Jeju system. The dead colony world looked worse than Kim remembered. The oceans were gone. The forests burned away. The cities reduced to glass. And in the middle of what used to be the capital, the Talvek had built a tower 50 meters high. At its base, an inscription in their language boasted of their easy victory, of humanity's weakness, of the Talvek's inevitable dominance. Kim's hands shook on his flight controls. This was where his family died, where his friends burned, where his entire world ended. The monument was an insult, a desecration. It had to go. His squadron approached from the planet's dark side. The Talvek occupation force consisted of 1 garrison and 2 patrol ships, maybe 200 soldiers total. They felt safe. New Jeju was deep in Talvek territory now. No humans could reach it, or so they thought. The fighters dropped from orbit in complete silence. They scattered across the garrison, targeting power generators and communications first. Then they fired. The base exploded in a dozen places at once. Talvek soldiers rushed to their weapons, but they couldn't see the attackers, couldn't coordinate a defense. They died in confusion and chaos. The patrol ships launched, but Kim's squadron was waiting. They destroyed both ships before they cleared the atmosphere. Then the fighters circled back to the monument. Kim armed his last 3 missiles and locked onto the tower. He thought of his family, his home, everything the Talvek took from him. "For New Jeju," he said quietly, and fired. The missiles struck the monument's base and the entire structure collapsed. The explosion was massive, deliberate, and deeply satisfying. Kim watched it fall through his cockpit window. He felt nothing, no joy, no satisfaction, just emptiness. Destroying the monument didn't bring anyone back. But it sent a message, and messages were all they had. The squadron left 1 Talvek soldier alive. Deliberate, intentional. They made sure he saw everything. Saw the human fighters, saw the destruction. Then they let him run to his emergency beacon. Let him call for help. Let him tell his commanders what happened. The soldier's testimony reached War Master Cross 3 hours later. The warrior listened in silence as the soldier described the attack. Described the invisible ships that killed his entire garrison. Described the human fighters that appeared like demons from the dark. "They left me alive," the soldier said, his voice shaking. "They wanted me to tell you. They said to remember their colonies. They said this is just the beginning." Cross dismissed the soldier and sat alone in his command center. He pulled up tactical displays of the entire border region. 15 ships lost, 1 garrison destroyed, no enemy ever detected, no battles fought in any traditional sense. The humans were fighting a completely different war. A war in shadows and silence. A war the Talvek didn't know how to counter. He opened a communication channel to Overlord Vren. "My lord, the situation is more serious than we thought. I request permission to mobilize 50 warships to hunt these human raiders." We must find them before they strike again. Vren's face appeared on the screen. He looked angry but also uncertain. Permission granted. But War Master, hear me clearly. You will find these humans. You will destroy them. And you will prove that the Talvek Empire bows to no one. Cross bowed. Yes, my lord. But after the transmission ended, Cross stared at his tactical display and wondered. The humans were out there somewhere, watching, planning, striking when and where they chose. For the first time in his long military career, War Master Cross felt something he never expected to feel. Fear. The ESS Retribution traveled deeper into Talvek space than any human had gone before. 35 light-years from Earth. 20 light-years past the dead colonies. They were deep in enemy territory now, far beyond any hope of reinforcement or rescue. If something went wrong, they would die alone in the dark. Nobody spoke about it, everyone knew it. They came here anyway. Captain Taemin Park stood in the science lab with Dr. Haewon Lee. Between them, a holographic display showed a star. The Talvek Home System star. Yellow-white, stable, life-giving. Dr. Lee manipulated the display, showing where the stellar torpedoes would need to strike. Here, and here, 3 insertion points in the corona. The chain reaction starts slow but accelerates. The star will go nova in 72 hours after activation. Park studied the display carefully. How many people live in this system? Dr. Lee's face remained neutral, but her hands trembled slightly. 3 billion, give or take. Their homeworld, 6 orbital stations, and 12 mining colonies. Park looked at her. Really looked at her. She had dark circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept well in months. Creating a weapon that could kill billions weighed on her. He understood. It weighed on all of them. Can we deactivate it after activation? She nodded. Yes, the torpedoes respond to a specific shutdown code. I'm the only one who has it. If we deactivate within 48 hours, the star stabilizes. After that, the reaction becomes self-sustaining. Park turned back to the display. 3 billion lives. Men, women, children, civilians who had nothing to do with the colony attacks. Was he really considering this? Was humanity capable of such massive murder? He thought of his sister, his niece and nephew, the 2.3 million dead. The Talvek showed no mercy, expected none in return. But did that make this right? He activated his comm. All senior officers to the conference room, immediately. 10 minutes later, the Retribution's leadership sat around a table. Park explained the plan, explained the weapon, explained what they were about to do. The room fell silent. Lieutenant Dong-Ha Kim spoke first. They killed our people without hesitation, without mercy. Why should we give them what they never gave us? Commander Bo-Ra Shin shook her head. Because we're not them. We're better than them. If we do this, we become exactly what they think we are. Monsters. Park raised his hand for silence. Admiral Kang gave us clear orders. We deploy the weapon. We make demands. If the Talvek surrender and meet our terms, we deactivate it. If they refuse, we let the star kill them. We're not murderers. We're giving them a choice they never gave our colonies. The officers debated for 2 hours. Some argued for immediate deployment. Others wanted to find another way. In the end, they voted. 7 in favor, 3 against. The mission would proceed. 3 days later, the Retribution and 2 escort ships reached the Talvek homeworld system. They approached from above the orbital plane where sensors were weaker. They moved slowly, using gravity wells to mask their approach. The system was heavily defended. Hundreds of ships, thousands of defense platforms, but none of them were looking for something invisible. Dr. Lee prepared the stellar torpedoes personally. 3 devices, each containing humanity's most terrible weapon. She loaded them into launch tubes and programmed their flight paths. Her hands didn't shake now. She had made her choice, made her peace with it. If the Talvek chose death, that was their decision, not hers. Park gave the order. Launch torpedoes. 3 dark objects shot from the Retribution's tubes. They flew without thrust, using gravity to accelerate toward the star. They were small, cold, impossible to detect. They reached the star's corona 6 hours later and burrowed deep into the plasma. Sensors couldn't track them in the intense radiation. They settled into position and activated. Deep inside the star, exotic matter began disrupting fusion reactions. The effect was tiny at first, barely measurable, but it grew exponentially. The star's internal balance started shifting. Gravity and fusion pressure began falling out of alignment. Within 12 hours, Talvek scientists noticed something wrong. Within 24 hours, they confirmed the impossible. Their star was becoming unstable. Panic spread across the homeworld. Scientists couldn't explain what was happening. Engineers couldn't stop it. The military couldn't fight it. Their star, the source of all life in their system, was dying, and they had no idea why. Overlord Vren summoned every expert in the Empire to his palace. War Master Cross stood beside him as astronomers presented their findings. The star would go nova in 48 hours. Maybe less. 3 billion people needed evacuation. But they didn't have enough ships, didn't have enough time. The numbers were brutal. At best, they could save 500 million. The rest would die. Vren listened in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. Stars didn't just become unstable. There had to be an attack. A weapon. But who had such technology? Not the humans. They were primitives. Prey. Easily defeated. Except they weren't defeated. They were out there somewhere, watching, waiting. Admiral Jiwoo Kang's transmission reached the Talvek homeworld exactly 36 hours after the torpedoes activated. She appeared on every screen and display across the planet. Her face was calm, professional, cold, people of the Talvek Empire. My name is Admiral Jiwoo Kang of United Earth. Your star is dying because we made it die. We have the power to save it or let it destroy your civilization. The choice is yours. The transmission showed footage of the stellar torpedoes burrowing into the star, showed the human fleet waiting in the dark, showed Earth's military might that the Talvek never expected. You murdered 2.3 million human colonists without warning or mercy. You thought we would run or hide. You were wrong. Now you will make a choice, surrender completely or die completely. You have 24 hours. She outlined the terms. Total disarmament, reparations to Earth, exile from all former human territory, public trial of war criminals, complete submission to human authority. The terms were harsh, humiliating, but they came with one promise. If the Talvek agreed, Earth would save their star, their people, their civilization. The transmission ended. The Talvek homeworld erupted into chaos. Some demanded immediate acceptance. Others called for resistance. Overlord Vren stood in his palace and stared at nothing. He had ruled an empire for 20 years, had conquered species weaker than his own, had built monuments to his victories. And now humans, primitive humans, held his entire civilization hostage with a weapon he couldn't comprehend. War Master Cross approached carefully. My lord, we must accept their terms. We have no choice. Vren turned on him with fury. No choice? We are the Talvek Empire. We bow to no one, especially not to prey animals who got lucky with one weapon. Cross held his ground. My lord, they have our star. They have our lives. If we refuse, 3 billion people die. Everything we built dies. Accepting surrender is not weakness, it's survival. But Vren wasn't listening. His pride wouldn't allow surrender, couldn't accept defeat by species he considered inferior. He made his decision. Mobilize every warship we have. Every carrier, every destroyer. We attack Earth directly. If we're going to die, we'll take them with us. Cross stared at his overlord. My lord, that's suicide. Our people need evacuation, not— Get out! Vren screamed. Mobilize the fleet, or I'll find someone who will. Cross left the palace and returned to his command center. He gave the orders. 400 warships, every military vessel the Talvek Empire possessed, mobilized for one final assault. They would strike Earth, destroy humanity's homeworld, make the humans feel the same terror the Talvek felt now. It was insane, desperate, But Vren commanded and Cross obeyed. The massive fleet formed up and jumped to faster than light speed. Their destination was Earth. Their goal was genocide. Their chance of success was nearly zero, but pride demanded they try. Captain Park received the alert from his sensors. 400 ships jumping toward Earth. He activated the emergency channel to Admiral Kang. Admiral, they rejected the terms. The entire Talvek fleet is moving on Earth. We need to intercept. Kang's voice came back steady and calm. Already tracking them, Captain. They'll pass through the void belt in 18 hours. Position your fleet there. Stop them. All of them. Park looked at his tactical display. 6 stealth carriers versus 400 warships. The numbers were impossible. Insane. But humanity didn't fight with numbers. They fought with innovation, creativity, fury. Understood, Admiral. We'll stop them. He turned to his bridge crew. Set course for the void belt. All ships. Battle speed. Silent running. The 6 carriers moved into position. They spread out across the Talvek fleet's projected path. They went dark. Weapons ready. Crews at battle stations, waiting for the enemy to arrive. Lieutenant Kim prepared his squadron. This was it. The biggest battle any of them would ever fight. Maybe the last battle any of them would ever see. Park stood on his bridge and watched the countdown timer. 12 hours, 8 hours, 4 hours, 1 hour. Then his sensors detected the gravity wells of ships dropping out of FTL. 400 Talvek warships appeared in the void belt, right where Park knew they would be. War Master Cross stood on his flagship and surveyed his fleet. 400 ships, enough firepower to crack a planet. He felt no joy, no battle fever, just resignation. The Battle of the Void Belt began without warning. One moment the Talvek fleet moved forward in formation. The next moment, 3 ships exploded simultaneously. War Master Cross shouted orders, but his crew couldn't find the attackers. Sensors showed nothing. The space was empty except for his own ships, but something was killing them. Captain Taman Park watched from the ESS Retribution's bridge as his fleet struck from every direction. The 6 carriers had positioned themselves around the Talvek formation like predators circling prey. They launched fighters in complete silence. No engine signatures, no heat trails. Just small dark shapes moving through the black. Lieutenant Dong Ha Kim led his squadron against the Talvek fleet's left flank. His targeting computer locked onto a destroyer. He fired kinetic rounds and the enemy ship's shields collapsed. The destroyer tried to turn, but Kim's wingman was already there, firing missiles into the exposed engine section. The ship broke apart. The Talvek fleet fired back, but they had nothing to aim at. They sent out energy pulses hoping to detect something. Anything. Their weapons fired in random directions hoping to hit invisible enemies. Instead, they hit each other. Friendly fire killed more Talvek ships than human weapons did in the first 10 minutes. Cross watched his tactical display fill with red markers. Ships destroyed. Ships damaged. Ships reporting casualties. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. His fleet was falling apart, and he couldn't stop it. Couldn't even see what was killing him. All ships, tight formation, stop firing randomly, conserve ammunition. But his orders came too late. Panic had spread through the fleet. Captains ignored commands and made desperate maneuvers. Ships collided. Formations broke. The disciplined war machine that left the homeworld had become a confused mob. Commander Bora Shin coordinated the attack from the Retribution's combat center. She tracked every Talvek ship, identified their command vessels, and directed human fighters to priority targets. The Talvek moved predictably. They followed standard military doctrine. Humans didn't. Humans adapted, improvised, struck where the enemy was weakest. Park ordered his carriers to move between attacks. They never stayed in one position. Never gave the Talvek a chance to coordinate a response. The carriers were ghosts, drifting through the battle like shadows. Their fighters launched, struck, and returned. Then the carriers moved again. 2 hours into the battle, the Talvek fleet had lost 80 ships. The humans had lost nothing. Cross couldn't believe it. This was impossible. No force this small could destroy a fleet this large. But it was happening. His sensors showed it. His dying crews confirmed it. The humans were winning. A Talvek cruiser got lucky. Its random sensor pulse bounced off one of the human carriers at close range. For just a moment, the carrier's outline appeared on their screens. The cruiser fired everything it had: missiles, energy beams, kinetic rounds. All of it converged on the human ship. The ESS Vengeance took the hit. Its stealth coating ablated under the assault. Its shields collapsed. The ship staggered. Park saw it on his display and cursed. The Vengeance was exposed now, visible. Every Talvek ship in range turned its weapons on the wounded carrier. Park made his decision instantly. All ships converge on the Vengeance, cover its retreat, fighter squadrons, engage everything targeting that carrier. The human fleet broke cover. All 6 carriers appeared on Talvek sensors at once. But instead of running, they moved toward the enemy. Fighters swarmed the Talvek ships, threatening the Vengeance. The other carriers fired their own weapons, massive railguns that tore through Talvek armor. The Vengeance limped away, badly damaged but alive. Cross saw his chance. The humans were visible now, committed to protecting their wounded ship. He ordered his fleet to concentrate fire. 200 surviving ships turned their weapons on the human carriers. If he could destroy even one, it would be worth it. The space between the fleets filled with weapons fire. Energy beams crisscrossed the dark. Missiles streaked in both directions. Kinetic rounds moved too fast to see. It looked like war was supposed to look. Direct, brutal, fair. Except it wasn't fair at all. The human carriers were still faster, still smarter. They moved in unpredictable patterns while their fighters harried the Talvek formation. Every Talvek shot had to lead the target. Every human shot hit exactly where it aimed. The technological gap was massive. The tactical gap even worse. Lieutenant Kim's squadron targeted Cross's flagship. The War Master's ship was larger than the others. Better armed. More heavily shielded. Kim studied it from 3 kilometers away and found the weak point. Every ship had one. The flagship's was a sensor array near the bridge. If he could blind it, the whole command structure would collapse. He dove toward the flagship, his fighter moving at maximum speed. Talvek point defense systems tracked him and fired. He jinked left, rolled right, cut engines, and drifted. The defensive fire missed. He locked onto the sensor array and fired. The array exploded. The flagship went blind. Cross felt his ship shudder. Alarms screamed. His bridge displays went dark. He was blind and deaf in the middle of a battle. His crew shouted reports, but he couldn't coordinate a response. The humans had cut his throat without killing him. He would die slowly, unable to command, unable to fight, unable to do anything but watch his fleet die around him. 4 hours into the battle, the Talvek fleet had lost 200 ships. The humans had lost 1 escort carrier, the ESS Vengeance, which had managed to jump to safety despite its damage. The math was brutal, unforgiving, complete. The Talvek Empire's entire military force was being systematically destroyed by 6 ships and a few hundred fighters. Park ordered a general pursuit. The surviving Talvek ships were trying to retreat now, running back toward their homeworld. But there was no safety there, only a dying star. The humans hunted them across the void belt, destroying stragglers, killing those too damaged to keep up. It was merciless, necessary. The Talvek had to learn that attacking Earth came with consequences. By the time the battle ended, only 50 Talvek ships remained. They jumped to FTL in panic, racing back to their doomed homeworld. Cross's flagship was among them, limping on backup systems. The War Master sat in his darkened bridge and stared at nothing. He had failed. Failed his overlord. Failed his empire. Failed himself. The human fleet didn't pursue. They had won. Decisively. Completely. Park stood on his bridge and watched the last Talvek ships disappear. His crew cheered, hugged each other, cried with relief. They had survived. Against impossible odds, they had won. Park activated the channel to Admiral Kang. "Admiral, the Talvek fleet is destroyed. Enemy survivors are retreating to their homeworld. Estimate 50 ships remaining out of 400. We lost one carrier damaged. Ready for orders. Kang's voice carried satisfaction and exhaustion. Well done, Captain. Return to Talvek space. We need to finish this. 6 hours remained before the Talvek star went nova. The homeworld was chaos. Overlord Vren sat in his palace and received the news of the fleet's destruction. 400 ships. Gone. Destroyed by 6 human vessels. It was impossible. Unthinkable. But it was true. His communication officer approached nervously. My lord, Earth is broadcasting again. Admiral Kang's face appeared on every screen across the planet. Her expression was hard, unforgiving. Your fleet is destroyed. Your star is dying. You have 6 hours to accept our terms, or your civilization ends. Choose now. The Talvek people made the choice their leader couldn't. Millions filled the streets demanding surrender, demanding to live. The military command arrested Overlord Vren and locked him in his own palace. War Master Cross, limping, home on his damaged flagship, broadcast his acceptance of Earth's terms. On behalf of the Talvek Empire, I accept complete surrender. We will disarm. We will pay reparations. We will submit to human authority. Please, save our star. Save our people. Admiral Kang received the transmission on Earth. She looked at the faces around her command center. Officers who lost families, civilians who lost homes, an entire species that nearly died. She gave the order. Dr. Lee, transmit the shutdown codes. Dr. Hae-Wan Lee entered the sequence she had memorized. The codes traveled across space to the stellar torpedoes buried in the Talvek star. The devices received the signal and deactivated. Deep inside the star, the chain reaction stopped. The exotic matter dissolved. The fusion reactions stabilized. The star would live. And so would the 3 billion people who orbited it. The Talvek people watched their sun and waited. Astronomers confirmed the stabilization. The nova was stopped. They would live. Their relief was overwhelming. Their gratitude non-existent. They had been humiliated by a species they considered prey. But they were alive. That would have to be enough. The aftermath took months to resolve. War Master Cross became the new Talvek leader. Overlord Vren was executed by his own people for his pride and stupidity. The Talvek Empire dissolved, its territory divided, its weapons dismantled, its fleets scrapped for parts. Earth established military outposts throughout former Talvek space. The colonies were rebuilt. New Jeju, Busan Station, Daegu Prime. Humans returned to their homes and planted new gardens on scorched ground. Memorials were erected for the 2.3 million dead. Their names carved in stone, their sacrifice remembered. Captain Taemin Park was promoted to admiral and given command of the Frontier Defense Forces.